All right, you guys, here we are, part number 2. Remember, in the last part, I was fleecing God. I said I needed to go to school full time, and I needed to go debt free. I did not want any debt, and I wanted to be able to get done with it very quickly. At this point, I was young. I could have done anything. I could have went to school for anything. I was 29 years old. I was not married anymore. I literally could have done anything, but because God gave me a dream to become a nail tech, that is the only thing I could think about. I was eat, sleep, and breathing thinking about being a nail tech, even though I had no interest in nails whatsoever. I had never even had a manicure. This is something that He called me to do, and I would not know until later why I was called into the nail industry. So I told the Lord I needed to go full time and I needed to go debt free. So I drew unemployment benefits and I was applying for jobs. And so while I was applying for jobs, nothing was working out. Like, I would apply for a job, nobody would call me. And so about a week and a half passed, and I started thinking about the nail industry again. So what I did was I ended up calling Academy of Nails, and I talked to Brent again. I said, so when does the next class start? He said, well, just so happens that the next full-time class is going to start on Friday. And I thought, okay, so what can I do to get into that class? And I couldn't believe I said that, but I did say it. I put my faith out there and was like, what can I do to get into this class? He said, well, are you working? And I thought, I did tell this guy that I had a job. Why would he ask me if I was working? I was too embarrassed to tell anybody I got fired. And so I said, no, I'm actually not working. I lost my job a week ago, whatever it was. And he said, oh, well, if you lost your job, you can call Kelly down at, whatever phone number it was. And so he gave me the phone number and told me to call Kelly and tell her that he sent me. So I get on the phone, I call Kelly, and I tell her, I said, so I just spoke with Brent, my name is Kimberly Blakes, and I'm interested in going to nail school, and I need it to be funded or financed, whatever the case is. And she asked me if I had a job, and I said, no, I got fired, and I'm drawing benefits. That was to my advantage. So she said, do you have time to come down to complete some paperwork? And I said, sure. So before we got off the phone, she said to me, where do you live? And I told her where I lived. And she said, well, I don't work with people in Cook County. You have to contact the state, the city of Chicago. I said, well, Brent told me to call you. And she kind of said, well, I understand that, but I don't work with anybody in Cook County. And so I just sat on the phone. Like, many times God will tell you to just sit there. And so I just sat on the phone quietly. I didn't say anything. I didn't argue. I didn't say anything because I didn't know what to do at this point. It was like she was my last hope. So she, after a couple seconds, she said, well, what you can do is come down here and I'll fill out your application and I'll fax it over to the people in Cook County. And I said, okay. She said, do you have time to come now? Because I had somebody cancel. And I said, yes. And so I got in my car and I drove over there, and I completed a bunch of paperwork. While I was completing the paperwork, sitting in this girl's cubicle, she said, well, why don't you go to school for like nursing or something? I said, I'm not interested in nursing. I'm not that kind of people person. And she said, but nursing pays more, blah, blah, blah. So then she showed me the average income of a nail tech. And I said, I won't make that. And that was me talking in faith. Whenever you blurt something out, know that God put that in you to say. You have to say it. And so I said, I won't make that. I won't ever make that. It was something like $25,000 a year. It was some ridiculous number. I have never made under $70,000 in nails, and that was when I was like 30. So anyway, so I'm filling out the paperwork, and she said, well, we're going to need you to do a math and a reading test in order to submit the application. You have to be above a certain number. And I said, okay, when can I take the test? So then she goes to her computer and she's looking. She said, well, we don't have anything open for a couple weeks. I said, well, that ain't going to work because the next nail class starts on Friday. And she said, well, maybe you can get into the next class. I knew the next class wasn't going to be for a few months. So I said to her, okay, and I just kind of was walking out to my car really slow thinking, okay, is there any way this is going to happen? Because There is no way. And so I get out halfway to my car, and Kelly comes running out to the parking lot and said, we have a test starting in about 25 minutes, and somebody that was supposed to be in that test just called and canceled. Would y'all just think of all this happened? All this happened, and at the time, because I was new in Christ, I didn't even see it as anything. And it was the hand of God. And she said, so can you stay and do the math and the reading test now? And I said, of course I can. I didn't have a job. What else was I going to do? Sit home and watch Maury? Because that's what I was doing at the time. So I went in and I did the math and the reading test. Very easy because I'm not, whatever. So I passed the test. So she took everything and said, okay, I'm going to fax everything over to Cook County. And I said, okay, so when will I find out? Now, I'm thinking she's going to fax this over and somebody's going to call back in like an hour and say something. She said, Kimberly, this is not the way it works. And I said, well, what are you talking about? She said, okay, nail school is not something that the state of Illinois really funds. They have never funded anyone 100% for nail school. She said, now that's first. She said, they might fund you about 20 to 25%. I said, okay, so if they fund 20 to 25%, then what? She said, then you have to pay the rest cash. I said, so when do I pay that? She said, before you start school, you have to pay the rest in cash, and we will send over bank draft for the 25%. She said, that's if you're approved. And she said, that can take 30 to 90 days. I'm like, why didn't she tell me this in the first place? I felt my eyes started to well up with tears. I was like, there's no way. I just wasted my time. And she said, but I'm going to fax everything over. And then, as soon as we find something out, I will call you or send you a letter. If they don't approve you, I will send you a letter. And I said, okay. So I get out to my car and I sat there, and boy, I had me a good old pity party. I was in tears. I was crying. I was acting the whole fool. I'm sure God was like, listen, this girl don't have an ounce of faith. I didn't, because I did not know God. I was new. I was a babe in Christ. I had never done anything like this. I thought I was making a fool of myself. Why was I not looking for a job? I needed money right then and there. That's what happens. Many times we get so provision minded that we forget about the vision, that we lay aside the vision that God has for our life because we're so concerned with money. Many of you are in jobs that you ain't supposed to be in. God ain't told you to take that job. He didn't tell you to move to that state. He didn't tell you to marry that man. He didn't tell you to do any of that. But you did it because you were looking out for your own life. I wanted to know God. I wanted to know the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I wanted to know him intimately. I was someone who read the Bible. I believed God. But I had never been stretched. I had never been pushed out into faith. Okay? So that's part 2. We're going to start part 3 right now.